It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of Bank Information. Take charge of your financial future with Your Personal Bank. Now here's Ference Toth.
Welcome to Your Personal Bank. Today we are going to talk about some of the bigger picture issues that are affecting our money. Those of you that have been listening to the show for a while know that I tend to focus on the personal bank strategy, how to on the first show of the week, and the second show I try to focus on bigger picture issues, how our money grows, how to grow our money, keep it, pass it on to the next generation, and that can encompass all kinds of things. Obviously, mostly recently, I say last year or so, it's been about the attacks on our freedom, including our financial freedoms, that our government has been actively or proposing to limit our freedoms frankly on a regular basis. And we got some wins in that area recently, which is awesome too. But if you want more information about Your Personal Bank, how to grow your money with guarantees, with safety, reduce your tax, do it tax free, so it reduces your future tax liability. Look, if you're concerned about taxes rate being increased in the future, you need to contact me at toll-free 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com, because I can show you how to reduce your future tax liability. It's all perfectly legal. And I think you have a valid reason for being concerned about future taxes being higher. If you're concerned about market risk, things like that, with a changing economy, again, Your Personal Bank can really it has guarantees, so you can lock in some guaranteed, steady, consistent growth. And if you're concerned about higher inflation going forward, which again, we're already in an inflationary cycle if this continues, and the Federal Reserve has admitted it will, at least through the end of 2022, probably longer. You want a highly interest rate sensitive asset, and Your Personal Bank fits that bill. So again, and then just purely from a straight up diversification strategy into an unrelated, non-correlated asset, something that's totally unrelated to anything else you have, whether that may be the markets, stock market, real estate market, cryptos, precious metals, anything like that. You want something to diversify in something that's consistent, steady Eddie, has over 100-year track record of never missing a dividend, all that good stuff. Contact me at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. If you want to learn more about how it works, I'm going to encourage you to go to the website, listen to the previously recorded shows, because I talk about, there's about almost 2 years of content of different shows that I've done on the personal bank concept, answering all the different questions, how it works, all those kinds of things. There's plenty of information available. And again, you can just listen into it on your computer or your smartphone or whatever when you're checking your emails or doing other things or at work or whatever, and learn about this concept, again, how it works and how it can really enhance your financial future. And again, the most powerful aspect is give you positive cash flow or positive arbitrage on your money. So again, it's yourpersonalbank.com. Today, I've got a number of things to talk about that things are both happening or being proposed to happen that I think are very important for anyone who is financially responsible, needs to know. And we need some of these things are going to be a call to action even. So this is all about protecting our financial freedoms, Folks, economic freedom, the ability to earn money, grow money, pass it on to your next generation, is a freedom just like any other. A lot of people don't know this, but I was sharing this with a client, a potential client, in fact, today, where I was explaining the founding fathers were talking when they were discussing the preamble of the Declaration of Independence, which was the very first document that founded our government that we have today. Is the life, we're endowed by our Creator with His unalienable rights. Okay, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We've all heard that, the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. In fact, though, if you read the Federalist Papers and those kinds of things, what the founders were talking about when they were discussing what phrases to use, the pursuit of happiness it was very close to be the right to own property. In other words, the pursuit of happiness is very closely tied to economic freedom. So people who are not economically free, frankly, are not free, are they? So if you don't have the ability to earn or keep your money, or pass it on to the next generation, how free are you really? And again, it comes back to that land of opportunity, an opportunity to society versus a dependency society, where you have an overarching, overpowerful, over-controlling government, whether that's a dictatorship, socialism, communism, whatever. Back then it was monarchies, okay? A monarchy is not much different than a dictatorship. It's an all-powerful individual in charge of the government, right? What's the difference? So they were breaking free of that. And here's another thing I want people to understand. The whole idea of progressives, people calling themselves progressives, is a theft and a misnomer. And here's what I mean. Some of the most progressive people in the history of our country were our founding fathers. That's what's ironic. They created an experiment of democracy, of representative republic. It was much derided at the time. Remember, if you go back in your history a little bit, most people know this, that most countries at that time were dominated and controlled by monarchies, by kings and queens, right? Which were really dictatorships, right? The people didn't have any rights. The king had all the rights. It was a dictatorship. No different than a current tin horn dictator in some banana republic, right? What's the difference? Cuba, Venezuela, those kind of come to mind. North Korea. Monarchy is not much different than that in terms of the form of government. And they broke free of that, okay, by creating a democracy, giving the people freedoms, giving the people power. And it was much derided. It was considered a joke. It wouldn't last, all those things. It was very, extremely out-of-the-box thinking and extremely progressive. It was progressing to a better form of government, a higher form of government, a government where the power went to the people, right? Almost had never been done in human history. There's some experience with like ancient Greece, but outside of that, not much else, okay? So it gives you an idea of how rare, how unusual it was, especially for its time. And now the so-called progressives want to regress to a lesser form of government where there's a domination of a few, an oligarchy, or even a dictator almost, or socialism, communism, where it's a government dominates and controls everything. That's regressing back to what was worse than what we broke free from, what the Revolutionary War was all about. Remember the old taxation without representation thing? Okay? The Boston Tea Party? All those kinds of things. So again, the progressives are not progressives. They are regressives. They are regressing to a lesser form of government. More tyranny, more power, more control over our lives. Never forget that, okay? Now, here's some things, some economic things that we need to understand going forward. I'm going to be posting a number of these articles on our website, yourpersonalbank.com, for you to check them out, pass them on, whatever, okay? First one is, many people have heard this, where Biden predicts gas prices won't go down until 2022. He doesn't have as he put it, I don't have a near-term answer for gas prices, all right? And even, I think, a more alarming, so top Obama, there's a top Obama advisor, the top Obama economic advisor, okay? He's been coming out, as he puts it, torching the Biden administration over skyrocketing inflation. And his statement was, my alarm is increasing. He's been coming out and stating, look, inflation is a problem. Inflation is a huge problem. And it's like that 800-pound gorilla. And it's coming, it's already happening as we speak. Look at gas prices. Look at food prices. Okay? The supply chain crisis that we have, okay? All these things, the labor shortage we have because so many people are not working because of the government benefits that they get. I shared in an earlier show some months ago where there were over 20 states in the United States, they up until recently, a family of 4, okay, could receive over $100,000 in combined government benefits by staying home. It's everything from all the type of government assistance and food stamps and unemployment and everything else. You add it all up. And then I think it was Massachusetts. It was like $147,000 a year. Look, if people are getting paid, in roughly half the country, $100,000 a year plus as a family of four for not working, can you really blame them? Because a lot of the people who have lower paying jobs who don't make anywhere near that, I mean, that's an economic decision to stay home. And this isn't a short-term problem, folks. And this is where our complacency as folks who are fiscally responsible, and I think that's a very powerful term and appropriate. Look, I have a lot of folks on all spectrums of the social ladder in terms of how liberal or conservative they are in their social views. That's fine. I'm pretty much a libertarian. I'm a live and let live kind of person. So that stuff doesn't bother me very much, other than, in my opinion, being very libertarian, I believe that the government has no business in our business, okay? In other words, I'm not against vaccines or masks. I'm against mandates. I'm against the government mandating that stuff. I believe, and I've said that firmly from day one. You can go back and listen to my shows. Like I said, they're on yourpersonalbank.com. I've been very consistent in, look, if you think it's for you, go for it. If you don't, go for it. That's a decision between you and your doctor, okay? But the federal government in particular has no legal right, no constitutional right to mandate any of this stuff, in my opinion. I'm getting off track here a bit. My point is simple. Inflation is real. Inflation is growing. Inflation is a problem. And even the Federal Reserve has finally admitted that inflation is not transitory. It's going to be around longer than they thought. They're saying at least 2022. Look, folks, I trust our government leaders about as much as I trust a sleazy used car salesman. What makes you think it's not going to extend beyond that? And what control do they have over it? You know what I'm saying? In fact, unfortunately, in many cases, they've unleashed many of these things because in many cases, this is their preference, folks. And I understand. I had a hard time understanding this for quite some time. Why would our government want more inflation, less business, less people working, and all those things? Folks, follow the money. If they have more control, they have more power, and therefore they get more money, okay? It's all about power, control, and money, and have an overbearing, powerful government, okay? So they want this in many cases. We have to do everything we can, damage control, to weather the storm and stop the worst of the excesses, the worst of the problems that'll damage our economy and damage our country going forward. Stay tuned in the next segment. I'm going to talk about some of these other issues and some good news, okay? And some things you can do to protect yourself, so don't miss it.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome to Your Personal Bank Show. Today we're talking about some of the bigger issues. I've got a number of things, different articles that I'm going to be referring to, and I'm going to post these, like I said, on the Your Personal Bank, yourpersonalbank.com, our website. So if you want to check them out or pass them on to others, whatever, by all means, feel free to do so. We talked about in the first segment about inflation. Inflation is here. It's real. It's growing. The former Obama economic advisor is raising his alarm, as he put it. This could end up being, this is in essence, a tax on everybody. Okay, so there's things you need to do to protect yourself. Having an interest rate sensitive asset is one of the best ways, and Your Personal Bank can do that for you. It's highly interest rate sensitive. In fact, when interest rates it's paying 5.75 to 6% now. Historically, normal interest rate environments 7-8%, and high interest rate double digit. Okay, and it's high again, subject to interest rates, so it's highly interest rate sensitive with guarantees, tax free, which is the other aspect. Taxes. If taxes, it's almost inevitable. Taxes are going to be higher based on all this spending and debt that we already have, not to mention whatever else they're going to end up spending. So reducing your tax liability, again, it's going to be very powerful, very important for you to protect yourself. And, contact me, 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com for more info. Some of the other things I really want to touch on here is, I just love this. Wow. I'm being facetious. They're talking about imposing a capital gains tax on unrealized capital gains. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is talking about this. I mean, frankly, one of the most liberal, she was a former Fed chair, now Treasury Secretary, one of the most liberal people in the financial world ever dealt with. A tax on unrealized capital gains. I want you to think about that a minute. I mean, first of all, what is it? Well, capital gains is when you own an asset and it increases in value over time. Perfect example most people are familiar with would be either property, house, real estate, or stocks, investments, portfolios, things like that. Those are some of the two most common assets that are typically taxed via capital gains. So think about this a minute. Let's assume you had some stock investments in a portfolio, and it grew. Let's say you had $100,000 invested, okay, and it grew 10%. Well, that means you had a $10,000 gain, okay, and if you sold those investments, you would pay tax on that gain. That's the normal process. What they're proposing, Janet Yellen and others, is to tax you on the gain, whether you sold the asset or not. In other words, if you were in the 25, let's use a simple example. You have a $100,000 investment, or your house, increase. Well, let's keep it simple. Your $100,000 investment, it increases 10%. So now you have a $10,000 capital gain. All right. And let's say you're in the 25% tax bracket. That means you would have to pay 25%, depending on whatever rate it is they're going to charge. Who knows? But let's say that's the case. You would have to pay taxes on that. That'd be $2,500. You'd have to pay tax on something because it grew in value. You didn't sell it. You don't have the asset. You don't have the cash or the money in your pocket, but they're going to tax you on it anyway. The long-term capital gains rate right now is 15%. Even if it was that, you'd have to pay $1,500 in taxes. Where are you going to get the money? Well, unless you happen to have it laying around somewhere else, where a lot of people are going to access the funds. They're going to have to sell part of the asset, part of those stocks, to pay the tax, aren't they? Same thing with a house. Let's say your house is worth, $500,000. Well, let's just take an average house today, $250,000. All right? It's a little more than that today. Everything's gone up so much. But even if you had a house that was worth $250,000, and maybe they put some exemptions on this or not, I don't know, but I'm using this as an example, and it grew 10% in value, so it grew $25,000 in value, and you have to pay tax on that, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 or more in taxes because your house grew increased in value. I mean, where are you going to get the money? Hopefully you have some other assets to get the money, or would you have to sell your house to pay it? Now, they're talking about putting this on higher income earners and all this kind of stuff initially. But here's the problem. Okay. Like even Elon Musk pointed out, I think I saw an article very recently talked about if they impose this tax, they're talking about putting on millionaires and billionaires, right? He'd have to pay something like $50 million a year right now in taxes because his Tesla stock for the most part has increased in value. Even somebody like Elon Musk, it's not like he's got $50 million laying around in cash, right? His stock value went up. Okay, you're going to punish him and he's going to have to pay tax on this gain. What's going to have to happen? He's probably going to sell some of the stock. All right. Well, why should you care? Well, do you happen to have an investment portfolio? Do you own a mutual fund or any index fund? I'd venture to say a lot of people listen to me do. Well, Elon would have to sell a chunk of that to pay the tax, right? Would that affect your investment portfolio? And the answer is probably. You see my point. These things have unintended consequences. And why should we punish somebody just because they happen to end up being very successful? How many people does Elon Musk employ? How many jobs does he generate? Thousands? Okay, you see my point. Why should we punish somebody who's actually able to accomplish that? And like he pointed out, he said in an article, he said, I have a better plans with my money than you do. I mean, he's not for this, obviously. It's just plain silly. I mean, they're looking for ways to just grab money. Here's what I was trying to say. Here's why it's so important. Some people say, "Oh, who cares?" Some really high income earners income earners or whatever asset will end up having to pay this. Yeah, well, they said the same thing about the income tax when they first implemented it. It was only going to be the top 1%, right? How many people pay income tax now? Well, right now it's less than half, but Romney got blasted for stating that, but it's the facts, okay? But the reality is, anybody who earns any income pays tax to speak of. Any kind of income to speak of, we're all paying tax. The middle class pay a lot in taxes. The high end still pays the vast majority. I get it. But the reality is many of us pay taxes, and it's not supposed to be that way. In other words, once you allow government to get their nose in the door, they're like an unwelcome guest and they never leave. Does that make sense? So stopping this in its tracks in the beginning is the smartest thing to do, because very, very, very rarely does a government program ever, once implemented, ever go away. Okay? So this has the potential of impacting all of us. And let's face it, if some of these bigger companies or higher income earners start getting taxed on unrealized capital gains, they're going to do less investment, go offshore, go at other countries. In other words, our government's not going to collect anywhere near as much as they think they will, because these are the very kind of people who have the ability to go offshore, go to other countries, or set up tax havens, okay, that are legal. They can pay the people to do it, like myself, okay? There are ways around these things that are perfectly legal. That's my point. It's not going to work like they thought. France tried to implement something along this line, I believe, and they found it did not work either, okay? This stuff doesn't work, folks. Okay, and ultimately usually passes down to the middle class, and we end up getting stuck with the bill. Stay tuned in the next segment. I'll talk about some of these other things and a little bit more about this unrealized capital gains and how it could affect us and what we can do, well, to protect ourselves from being affected by it. So stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank. We have been discussing a number of things today in terms of various proposals that our current administration has been putting out to, well, infringe on our freedoms, our rights to economic freedoms in particular. That's what we're really focusing on. And again, these are a lot of things you're probably not going to hear probably anywhere else, because again, we're a financially focused show, and economic freedom is actually obviously a big key of the freedoms that we enjoy. So I was talking about unrealized capital gains, or proposing taxing unrealized capital gains. That would be things like real estate, if you own property, or typically portfolios, investment portfolios, things outside of IRAs, 401ks, but if your stocks or bonds or whatever go up in value, or your real estate, your house goes up in value, they're proposing taxing the gains, even though you haven't sold it. Now, again, it's on, currently they're saying on the highest income earners and stuff. But the reality is, you allow the government their nose in the door, guess what ends up happening? I mean, they said the same thing about the income tax. It would only affect the top 1%. Now it affects anybody who basically earns any kind of income to speak of, right? So, can't allow them to get started even, as we got to shut them down at the gate. And again, contact your representatives, contact your House and Senate representatives, and tell them, this unrealized capital gain thing is ridiculous. It's not right. Don't allow it. It's not, and they're going to try to put it through because, this whole class warfare thing, it's only going to affect the very rich, and, but one, you shouldn't punish somebody because they've been successful and done well. I mean, Elon Musk has recently become the richest man in America, I believe, because his Tesla stock has gone up in so much in value. He's a darling of the millennials, right? He's done very well for himself. Shouldn't be any reason why he should be punished and have to pay taxes on something that's grown in value but he hasn't sold. It's not right. He'll have to sell some of those assets to pay the tax. And if it'll go trickle down as a term, it'll trickle down to the rest of us, right? You want, again, another negative impact on portfolios and retirements? Yeah, impose a unrealized capital gain tax on your higher income earners and businesses and stuff. Watch what happens, okay, to returns and results. It won't be pretty, folks, okay? There's just no two ways about it. And then the last thing about this unrealized capital gains, before I go on to my next topic, is what a lot of people fail to think about is, okay, fine, your property goes up in value or your stocks go up in value one year, and you pay the tax on it. What happens if the next year it drops in value? Do those things ever lose value? And the answer is yes, of course they do. So do you get a rebate? I don't think so. In fact, they're not talking about that. In fact, we all have, most of us know that if you had a loss, a capital gains loss, they only allow you, most people, individuals, to write off $3,000 per year. I have clients that have lost $100,000 and they write off $3,000 a year. They probably won't live long enough to get back the loss. You see my point? So in other words, our government wants its cake and eat it too. When things go up in value, they want our money. And when they go down, well, it sucks to be you, right? It's just not right, not fair by any stretch of the imagination, in no way, no how. Now, let's go on to the next topic that I think is very important. I got to give a shout out to In-N-Out Burger, because In-N-Out Burger has been fighting the good fight. I've talked about this in some previous shows recently. And again, if you missed them, go to yourpersonalbank.com, check it out. But they're basically, San Francisco County, that area, whatever, has imposed a vaccine mandate, basically stating that if you don't have a vaccine passport or whatever, then you can't eat at the restaurant, right? And In-N-Out Burger has said, we're not going to become the vaccine police. We refuse to do that. It's not our job as a private business. If somebody chooses to be a patron of our business, it's not our job to be the police and choose those who can and cannot eat in our restaurant. And I think they're absolutely right. And so they've been shutting down restaurants there, fighting, and they're fighting the good fight, and people are supporting them. And I think we need to do so. But here's the part we need to understand. Folks, Biden a month or so ago talked about a vaccine mandate on private businesses. Folks, to date, at least at this point, again, this may change, it's a fluid situation, but there's no national mandate. So all these companies that are rushing and all these businesses and companies and government agencies that are rushing to impose a vaccine mandate on their employees or patrons, folks, there's no mandate. There's nothing legal yet. Why rush? In other words, Biden just basically put out a press release, folks. Okay? Why not wait to see what it's going to be before, if anything actually is going to happen? The fact he just put that out there and folks jumped out there to do it, it gives you an idea where they come from, where they stand, and their eagerness to basically control people's lives. I find that mind-boggling personally. Stay tuned in the next segment. I want to talk about a few other things and wrap this up on what we can do going forward, because there's some good news, so some encouraging stuff. So I, again, encourage you to stay tuned. Don't miss it.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. We're going to wrap this up today, and we've been discussing, like I said, various proposals that our current administration has put out there that it could dramatically affect our economic freedoms. Well, destroy our economic freedoms going forward. Obviously, inflation being a big one. Imposing a tax on unrealized capital gains. My gosh, that one's just crazy. What can I say? Go to Your Personal, if you missed it in the previous segments, go to yourpersonalbank.com. You can listen to any of the previous recorded shows. You want one? I can give you one here that can make your head explode. So the Biden administration is, how should I say it? They are considering giving up to $450,000 per illegal immigrant that was separated. Their families were separated under the Trump administration when they came across our border illegally. They're actually considering paying those families up to $450,000 per family. Those that were separated from their families at the border under President Trump's administration. This is according to Wall Street Journal. So this is not, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I kind of deal with things that seem real. Now, is this real? I mean, one of the tactics that's used by the leftists, by the Marxists, the socialists, is they propose something that's absolutely ludicrous to get people fired up, and then they come back and say, well, we'll compromise and we'll drop it to 200,000 or 100,000 or whatever to calm people down. In other words, they have learned that if they put something out there, way out there, and people get worked up, they can pull back and people calm down. My hope is this is just crazy talk, that this is shot down. From a financial responsibility standpoint, it's so irresponsible, it's beyond comprehension. Secondly, when we got a situation where I've seen studies where up to around a third of our small businesses in the United States have been closed permanently, yet you want to give money, hundreds of thousands of dollars per person, to illegal immigrants. We have no responsibility for those people. I understand politically there is a class many who are in charge right now, and they're the Marxists, who are frustrated with the electorate. They're frustrated with people like you and me, particularly folks like me, and I think a lot listening. They're certainly frustrated with fiscally responsible people, of course, by a long shot. And I'll give you another class they're frustrated with here in a minute. But they're frustrated by many of the American citizens because we won't buy into their system. They want to be in control. They want socialism. They want communism. They want Marxism. And we're not buying into it. And they're frustrated, so they're allowed. That's what the open borders is all about. They're wanting to bring in a bunch of people who will then, they hope, by giving them freebies and whatnot, will vote for them. Look, if they do pay these people, I mean, is that a political bribe or not? What? I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. It's mind-blowing. It'll make your head explode, like I said. All I can say is, contact your senator, contact your representative. I mean, right now, that's about all we can do, because we as an American people allowed, through complacency, a lot of these folks to get in power and charge. And I can understand a lot of people were duped and thought that, even Biden himself, what do I look like, a radical? He ran as a moderate, right? He's run his administration far from it, far beyond anybody. And yeah, he lied. He lied to us, okay? And a lot of shenanigans happen, and they change the rules and all that. I get all that, but it's still, at the same point, we have to blame ourselves for being complacent, and I'm putting myself in that same boat, for being too complacent to allow so many of our institutions, like our government, like our education, Hollywood, and corporations, to be just run over and taken over by these people. We can't allow that going forward. The last one, what I said, is near and dear to my heart because I'm a parent. Interestingly, the leftists have declared war basically on parents by doing things like not allowing, these school board meetings. I mean, I got to give credit these parents stepping up and saying, hey, we don't like what you're teaching our kids. And basically, being called, then they come back with, attacking the parents as domestic terrorists and intimidating them and making them do all kinds of things and not listening to them, shut them down. In fact, there's an article here I thought that was great. Loudoun County's kind of been Virginia's been the ground zero for this. But even points out that the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office is frustrated because the school board was asking, in essence, for a SWAT team to be there and to infiltrate the parents as for school board meetings. And thankfully, the sheriff said no. But as he pointed out, they included a complaint that the board should have just let residents speak instead of shutting down their right to free speech, which is, one of our rights, okay, the Bill of Rights. They've taken over, and they're so arrogant that they don't want to even listen to their constituents, the people they work for. They don't look at it that way. So all we can do is replace them. There should be a mass exodus of students. I've said this before. Hey, folks, you can homeschool, you can online school, you can charter school, you can private school. There's so many options out there. Take advantage of those until you can replace the school board. Frankly, school boards should have parents in charge. I don't understand. The teachers' unions have done a phenomenal job of organizing and putting radical leftists in charge of these school boards, people that have no no, how should I say, no desire to educate the kids. They just want to indoctrinate them in this leftist ideology, the stuff that most parents are vehemently against. Now, here's where I think, in particular, the leftists have overstepped their bounds. I've said this before. You don't piss off a mama bear, right? A mama bear is going to protect her cubs, and daddy bears too. And some of the polls that we've seen recently in like Virginia, there's a governor's race, are showing those very things. Folks, Virginia's a blue state, okay? Biden won it by like 10 points. Now, if you believe the numbers, I get all that. But let's put it this way. There's been over a decade since any Republican has won statewide office in Virginia. The Republican guy who's running for office there, it's a governor, has no business being even in the running, okay? And every indication is showing it's neck and neck at worst, and it's possibly the Republicans ahead. And the biggest reason is, Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic nominee for governor, he's former governor of Virginia, basically said parents have no right to determine what their kids should be taught in school. That should be up to the school boards. You don't tell a parent that. You don't tell a parent that someone else has the right to teach their kids what they should learn or believe in and all that. The parents are stepping up. And folks, that's where I think if there's any place in all of this stuff that's going on, I believe that probably more than anything else goes to the heart of the matter, the crux of that is the winning issue. That I've said this for a while. Every movement has a Pearl Harbor, 9/11, remember the Alamo type moment, right? There's something that just it's a lightning bolt, so to speak, that changes the direction of movements and can change the direction of countries and everything else. Look, folks, this is not a liberal or conservative issue. This is not a Republican or Democratic issue. This is about parental rights. Look, if there's a God-given right in this world, it's when you have children, you have the right to raise them the way you see fit and teach them the values that are important to you. I mean, what decent parent or grandparent doesn't want that for their kids, right? I mean, we all do. I want that for my children. I want to teach them the values and instill in them the values that are important to me to pass on my legacy, just like you do with your kids and your grandkids. And so no amount of liberal indoctrination or any other pressure for that matter is going to change that fact. Now, in fact, I've seen some things that, in fact, the change in this Virginia race, which is interesting, is mama bears have switched more to the Republican parents than Democrat, but papa bears have changed to a dramatic change. I find that interesting. Why is it that the dads, I guess naturally a dad wants to protect his kids. I mean, that's a natural thing, but so do moms. But the fact is that if a mom doesn't want her kids to be taught, this radical ideology and transgender stuff and frankly pornographic information books and stuff that are in the schools, I would think, again, a majority of moms want that, but it's not as big as the dads. I find that interesting, and I think part of the reason is there's more college-educated moms and college-educated dads now. There's a lot of reasons behind that, okay? And there was a significant indoctrination, obviously, on these moms when they were in college. So education, we need to change that. I've said this before. If you have kids that are in college and they're being taught stuff like most colleges, that things that you don't agree with, you paying for that, folks, that's just plain silly. That is financial suicide and financially foolish, okay? I will not fund something like that with my daughters, and I've already told them that. There are different options. There are colleges they can go to, Christian colleges, and not all of them are, but that'll teach them the values that are important to me and them. Or they can go to trade school, or they can do online college. There's so many options. By the way, folks, in most cases, online college is way cheaper, and they can get just as good of an education, if not better, frankly, than they would have got attending college. See, college isn't what it was when we were there as parents or grandparents. It's not the same thing. A lot has changed, and if you haven't come to realize that, you need to. Don't pay for educating your kids and grandkids into expose them to an indoctrination into ideas and things that you don't believe in. That's just complacency. That's foolish, and it's a terrible waste of your financial resources. In fact, one of the worst, in my opinion, because one of the best places you can spend money on, is investing in yourself or investing in your kids or grandkids, right? Probably one of the best investments anyone can do. All right? To invest in that foolishly and allow them to be exposed and indoctrinated into a philosophy that you don't agree with, that's just foolish. I don't know any other way to put it, okay? And I know many families today that are actually divided because, ironically, the kids now have political views in particular that are vastly different to the grandparents and grandparents. And ironically, it was the parents and grandparents that facilitated that and paid for that and allowed that to happen. I mean, how dumb is that, really? Let's be real. How dumb is that of us? So that gives you an idea of the complacency that we've had. We're waking up. That's the good news. We're getting some positive results. We're killing some of the worst of the things that are out there. But understand, this is not the end of the fight. This is the beginning. It's going to continue. It's a war of ideas. And my opinion is it's going to culminate in the midterm elections next year, which are going to be, it's going to be wild. And then in 3 years from now, the next presidential election, I think it's going to be a huge, huge battle of ideas. And we're building up to those things. So don't put your head in the sand. Get involved. Support a candidate you believe in, or run yourself if that's what needs to happen. But make a difference. Get involved. Influence your circle. Do what you can. This is the time. This is the call to action. So if you want to gain more power, more control of your life, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or toll free 866-268-4422.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and writers may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and baseline of credit rates may change. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.